gentlemen, well, we do know it is Wednesday, March the 11th, 2009. Welcome to the Irv Homer Show here on the internet. We have a telephone number for you to call if you so desire, 215-253-8877. We also have a website and an email address that I'll give you a little later on. But we have a chat room here for you to get involved in questions or comments as you see fit. Once again, this program is broadcast from IrvHomer.com. The website, www.irvhomer.com. You can email me at evilirv@irvhomer.com. And this is all put together by RGH Computer Services for all your computer problems or computer needs. You simply give them a call at 215-322-8685. Once again, let me remind you that this program may be rude, it may be crude, it may be nasty, it may be pleasant, it may be whatever, however I feel. It is uninhibited radio or television. I have no sponsors on this program. I have no obligations to anyone, any race, color, religion, political philosophy, ideology, or anything else. These opinions are my own. And what I find interesting is I do a remote broadcast on Wednesday on the commercial radio in the afternoon, and a gentleman that was in the audience said that he says, I disagree with about 90% of what you said. And I said, okay, fine, you're entitled to. However, I want to ask you a question. And he said, what is it? I said, did I say anything that was not true? And he said, what? I said, did I say anything that wasn't true? And so, as they say in Chinese, he was slightly fablonchik cup. And I could ask you to go to your Chinese laundryman and have it interpreted for you. So it's not a question of whether you like what I'm saying or whether you don't like what I'm saying, because I really don't give a damn. This is my program. If you want to do a program like this, you simply call RGH Computer Services at 215-322-8685 and you can do your own program. So if you're offended, that's tough apples. And if you're not offended, that's tough apples too. I tell the truth if you don't like it. Francis is on the line, on the telephone line. Francis, how are you from Florida?
I'm wonderful. I am staring at you on the computer. I haven't seen you in 17 years. And you are my favorite cousin, because I haven't seen any other cousin in 50 years. You are adorable. I'm just so thrilled to be looking at you and talking to you, and I miss you, and I can't wait to see you in August.
Well, Frances is my dear cousin. She resides in Florida. And we had the pleasure of celebrating Bernie Homer's 80th birthday on Sunday.
Oh, my God.
And we've become very close over the last year or so. I've contacted your brother for some reason or other. We just can't make contact with him. He doesn't respond to phone calls, and so apparently there may be a reason. I don't know what it is, but if you do speak to him, we'd like him to join what's left of the family, and of course he would be certainly welcome. So how are you in Florida? And you'll be up in August, you said. I have it duly recorded.
I will, because my brother's daughter is graduating with her master's from Penn State. I talk to my brother a lot, and he's never told me that he's gotten a phone call from you, but I will tell him. But Ashley is graduating with her master's on August 15th, and we will all be there. My son, his twin boys, his girlfriend, and I cannot believe that Bernie is 80 years old. I used to babysit for them when their kids were little.
Well,
and it's just a wonderful thing for me to see. I'm looking right at you, and you look so much like your father and my father. It's incredible.
Well,
and I love you.
I love you, Franny, all the years. And, you know, the funny thing is, when Bernie and his wife Laurie and my friend Shirley, we go out to dinner, people think we're brothers.
Really?
And, his older brother, Bud, is in Florida.
Bud is in Florida?
He lives in Florida. He's critically ill. He's been ill since he retired. And
I'm so sorry.
And in fact, Bernie just came back from Florida and visiting him. He has two sons that are both doctors, and he a doctor, and nobody knows what's wrong with him. It's the most bizarre thing in life. But
That's
it's a
unbelievable.
delight to hear from you, sweetheart. And I'm
Oh,
looking
I'm
forward to
watching-
seeing you in
oh.
August. And also, I'm going to insist, if Bernie and Laura are in town, that we all get together.
Absolutely. We're the only ones left, and I will tell my brother, and I am going to stare at you for the next hour.
Well,
You're
that's
so adorable.
thanks, honey. And that's Bernie is very active. He owns horses, and
Really?
yes,
Of course. He taught me how to ride.
sure. And he still has the horses and is active in the Devon Horse Show. And we were up at the house on Sunday, and the horses are in the back, and went out
Right.
there. And all of a sudden, I became familiar with horses.
He told me to ride bareback, Laura and he.
Well,
But listen, I don't want to tie up the show. I'm
oh,
staring
who
at
cares?
you.
You're
I
probably
love
more
you.
interesting than the rest of the people.
All I have down here is the Casey Anthony case, and I'm sick of it. So watching you and listening to Philadelphia is a joy.
Well, looking forward to seeing you, honey, and keep in touch.
And I will, dear. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay,
Take
take
care.
care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
This has been a phenomenon for those of you that are not familiar with it, that the Homer family is gradually reducing in size, and we're spread all over the country. Now we're getting together and introducing the kids and everybody so that the name will go on. Anyway, a
I
little...
guess I should have children then.
Well, not necessarily. Some don't and some do. Once again, the purpose of this program is to voice my opinion on issues. For those of you who are not just tuning in for the first time, I've been doing talk radio professionally in the Philadelphia market for some 35 years. I still do a daily show, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 1 o'clock on a station that is streamed, WBCB 1490 AM. And when the hamster is running, they are on the internet, and you can pick up the show live. Also appearing on Channel 6, which is an ABC affiliate here in Philadelphia, on a program called Inside Story on Sunday. And it is the highest rated program on Sunday morning, locally originating here in Philadelphia. And I've been with Channel 6 now about 15 going on 16 years. So I'm not a novice in this business. I consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable. If you have something that you want to question me on that I don't know, I'll openly admit I just don't know. Anyway, let me remind you that you can follow the Irv. Here we go. Follow the Irv Homer Show on Twitter. God Almighty. At www.twitter.com/Irv Homer Show. I've always wanted in my entire professional career to be a Twitter. And now I've reached the ultimate in my career. I'm a Twitter. My next appearance on Inside Story, that is viewed in the Philadelphia market on Channel 6, the ABC affiliate, is Sunday, April the 5th, 2009. That will be my next appearance. And I have to say that I'm the most radical one on the panel. And I like to rattle their cages. Few comments, and then we'll go to the chat room. You know, all week, well, since the Obama election, since November, the bloviators have gotten a lot of information from the Obama administration where things don't seem to be changing that much with the perks and the pork and the unreasonable amount of money that is spent in these so-called appropriations. Now, the bill that was just signed, that the president will sign tomorrow, probably has about 9,000 earmarks in it. And I heard the Hannitys and the Limbaughs screaming and yelling and going, then we're going to get rid of pork. And Martin Gross wrote a book many years ago, and that is the government waste, the law against government waste. And if you go through some of the earmarks and through some of the pork, some of it is really what I would consider to be wasteful. But I don't have a vested interest in some of the earmarks. For example, and I searched this out, and I mentioned it, I think, on Monday night's program. There's $150 million that was appropriated to study the odor that's generated from pigs. And you and I in the Philadelphia area, the East Coast, New York, Philadelphia, Florida, why would anybody want to spend that kind of money on the odor that comes from pigs? By a senator of North Dakota. Well, apparently the methane gas, to be gentle, the farting of pigs, creates an environmental hazard near schools, near factories, and near hospitals. And also the pig waste, the pig excrement, causes a problem in the environment. It also leaches into the ground, and so they build these tanks, and it costs a lot of money to purify the water, the excrement of the pigs. So for the people of North Dakota, $150 million to study the excrement of pigs and the odor of pigs is not wasted money. We here have our own smells from Roman Haas on I-95 as you go through Bridesburg. And I'm sure there's an earmark for that. But there is waste in government, there's no question about it. But also doing research, there will be 25 people hired from the sciences to study the odor and the excrement and how to get rid of the waste of pigs. So there is a plus side in creating jobs. And what they said, it may be pig crap to you, but it's bread and butter to the farmer out there in North Dakota. But the big complaint that I hear from the bloviators, and they're just pushing the button as far as they can. And Sean Insanity made a statement on Monday that it is time to get the tea bags ready to cut down the size of this Democrat government, this Obama government. We've got to cut it down to size, and it's time for the tea bags. Well, for those of you who remember history, the Boston Tea Party was where they took tea and they threw it into Boston Harbor. And of course, nobody ever commented on the fact that the guys that had the Boston Tea Party were cowards. And this gentleman, what do you mean they were cowards? They were brave, patriotic Americans, and they wanted to fight the British because the tax that was imposed on tea was oppressive. And I said to the gentleman, if they weren't cowards, why did they dress as Indians? If you're a brave, patriotic, strong American who is tired of oppressive government, you wouldn't dress as Al-Qaeda. You wouldn't dress as an Indian. You wouldn't put a turban on your head. You would be a brave American with the American flag and say, yes, I'm going to throw that tea in the Boston Harbor because I'm an American and I don't like the oppression of the taxes that you're imposing on tea. I wouldn't dress as a coward like an Indian. And so this gentleman got angry today. And I said, did they dress as Indians? Well, yes. Well, why didn't they just dress as colonists? And this is typical, ladies and gentlemen, of the bloviators that are stirring up the pot against the stimulus package, the outrageous bailout that they don't know whether it's going to work or not, but there isn't any better solution that we know of yet. I've recommended 4 or 5 things. I still say that unless those things are done, we're not going to get out of this mess that we're in financially. So Hannity is talking about the tea bags. And I'm steaming, and I'm figuring he can't be that dumb. But then I figured he's got to be that dumb. Because anyone who is listening to him knows that this guy's making millions of dollars a year, stirring up the pot, the real Americans, and had the unmitigated goal to say, we're all cutting back on our expenditures. We're all cutting back on our expenses. And Limbaugh said the same thing. Now, I think it's incumbent upon talk show hosts who are trying to be sympathetic to their audience to show them how they're cutting back on their lifestyle. I want to know how Limbaugh is cutting back on his lifestyle, like he's telling his ditto heads, the morons, to cut back on their lifestyle. Do you think that Rush Limbaugh is cutting back or sacrificing any way at all, making $110 million a year, single, no children to keep, no financial obligation except to feed his big behind with OxyContin? And do you think Hannity is limiting his purchasing to feel sympathetic with his audience? How do these people get away with this incredible bullshit on their radio programs and enjoy the following that they enjoy? It's because nobody's allowed to challenge them to get on the air. And so I say this to you ditto heads and you Hannity and Sanity followers. See if you can call through that program and say, Sean or Rush or Gallagher, whoever else these people are that are against this big government, why don't you lead a tax revolt? Mr. Limbaugh, tomorrow, Thursday, March the 12th, when you go on the air in Philadelphia at 12 o'clock, why don't you tell your listeners that we have had it with an oppressive government. We've had it with government that is too big. We've had it with government that is spending money like drunken sailors. I don't want you, and I won't, pay my taxes April the 15th of this year. And we'll put a stop to big government. Why would anyone that is so opposed to big government and wasteful spending continue feeding that beast while they're making over $100 million a year? Now let's make these guys put their money where their mouth is. Demand from Limbaugh to lead a tax revolt. Demand from Hannity to lead a tax revolt. Limbaugh claims to have 20 million listeners. Hannity claims to have about 15 million. That's 35 million people that won't file taxes and pay tax. Do you think that the government can put 35 million people in prison? Well, maybe they should dress up as Indians, like the brave forefathers did at the Boston Tea Party. Do you see how much bullshit these guys put out over the air and you people buy it? Maybe not the people who listen to this program. I don't know who listens or who not. But this is why nothing is going to change it. Because I personally feel that the Hannitys, the Limbaughs, are the pressure valve on your tea kettle. When that water boils too much, the escape valve lets the steam out. Well, what a better friend does Barack Obama have than the conservative bullshit artists on talk radio in America today that lets the steam out? And as long as they do the blowing up, and as long as they stir up their audience, and they go this far from leading a tax revolt, the administration is safe. So Limbaugh and Hannity, you're doing the president a favor. You are the escape valve to prevent the pot from boiling over. You're the safety valve on the hot water heater that prevents the hot water heater from blowing up. Because you're letting the emotions of boobus America that listens to you with the oppressive government, the outrageous taxation, so that the government feels perfectly safe. As long as the Limbaughs and the Hannitys are doing this yelling and screaming without jeopardizing their little behinds or placing anyone at risk, the government is safe. So Barack Obama knows what he's doing. He's no dummy. And many of the boobuses that listen to these guys on a daily basis are too damn dumb to know the game is being played. Now, not only is it the right, if Limbaugh and Hannity and others of the conservative movement, and even the liberal movement, do you know they have a constitutional right that we the people in this country have the right to overthrow our government? Now you hear Limbaugh and Hannity talking about, I believe in the Constitution. And the Constitution is the contract between the people of America and the United States government. And I'm a constitutionalist, and we've got to go back to the Constitution. And you hear that crap on a daily basis. Can I read to you from the Declaration of Independence, which is part of the Constitution of the United States? Now, these are not my words, ladies and gentlemen. These are the words of the Founding Fathers. And apparently, Mr. Limbaugh, Mr. Hannity, and the other right-wing nuts who are stirring up the pot against big government and oppressive taxation, apparently they don't read it, or they don't want you to know about it. Well, I'll read it to you. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to the ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Whoa! Hey, Limbaugh! Hey, Hannity, you don't like the size of government? You don't like the taxation? Right here. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute a new government. The Declaration of Independence says, Limbaugh and Hannity, you can overthrow the government. Where are you leading the fight to overthrow our government? And to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Well, if you're not happy, Rush and Hannity, and if your listeners are not happy and free, why don't you follow the Constitution and overthrow the government? You big fat windbag cigar sucking oxycontin freak. Why don't you read this to your listeners? But it even goes further. I didn't write these words. This is the Constitution of the United States. This is the Declaration of Independence to prove to you how fraudulent these guys are while they knock the drive-by media or the New York Times or the Philadelphia Inquirer or the Washington Post. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security of this country. Such has been the patient sufferings of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter the former system of government. Let's replace some of the words of the Declaration of Independence. The history of the present King of Great Britain. Okay, let's change that. The history of the present liberal Democrats is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute financial tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And then it goes on with the Declaration of Independence. And 2/3 of the original Declaration of Independence, OxyContin drug addict Limbaugh and bullshit artist Hannity could use these to overthrow the government. They have a constitutional right to overthrow the government of the United States and to change it to a new form of government, the government that they want, the government that they advocate. I'm merely pointing out to you, ladies and gentlemen, what liars these people are. And while they condemn the so-called drive-by media, the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, the Sunday programs, the print media, they're the real cowards, aren't they? Is it not evident that the rash of conservatism on radio today are fraudulent? They don't want to change anything. They like it the way it is. And so I merely want to point out to you that we, the people of the United States, with a fearless leader like a Limbaugh or a Hannity, can follow the Constitution of the United States and overthrow this Obama government. Have they ever once placed themselves in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form by hiding behind the First Amendment? They love the First Amendment. They have twisted and deleted and added and convoluted the First Amendment so much the Founding Fathers will leave it. But they don't use this part of the Constitution that gives them the right and the power and the obligation to change the government. That part they don't use. They don't challenge the 16th Amendment, which is the amendment that gives the government the right to collect personal income tax. If they wanted the Constitution, these frauds, and you frauds out there, the 16th Amendment would be eliminated in 5 seconds. You know what the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States is? And many of you use it. You know who use it? Mostly criminals use it. That you cannot volunteer any information that the government can use against you. And so in the Miranda decision, when a guy by the name of Miranda was apprehended, he gave information to the police, volunteered it. And at the time he was tried, the police used the information that he volunteered to them. And his attorney got up and said, wait a minute. Did you tell him what his rights were under the Fifth Amendment? And the arresting officer said, no. He said, do you think it was your obligation to tell him what your rights were? Well, see, ignorance of the law is no excuse in that decision. However, when they got to the Supreme Court, they said, the fact that people are ignorant of the Constitution, as Limbaugh and Hannity are, and most of his listeners, doesn't mean that the government doesn't have an obligation to instruct them as to what their rights are. Because if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And so, in an arrest today, they must Mirandize you. And even in non-arrest, you don't have to volunteer anything, as long as you do it in good faith. Can't be a smart aleck. You just say, look, under my constitutional rights, I don't have to volunteer any information that can be used against me. That's all. But we will line up like sheeple and fill out a tax form, the 1040 form, whether you do it electronically or whether you do it writing, whether you type it, you send an email, whatever the hell you do with it. And you will gladly give the government any information they want on that form. You will voluntarily give it to them so that they can use it against you. Wait a minute. Fifth Amendment says here, I don't have to volunteer any information. Because if you volunteer any information, the government can use it against you. And the whole tax code is voluntary compliance. I didn't write these laws, folks. Now, voluntary compliance doesn't mean that I'm obligated to fill out the tax form or give the government any information at all that can be used against me. And yet these windbags like Hannity and Limbaugh, and most of you boobuses out there that are listening to the program for the first time, you'll fill out that tax form, and you'll tell them everything. Oh, I bought this at Bosco's, I bought this at it, and I spent this for my car, and I want this deduction about, and you'll give them all kind of information. And then they got some guy sits there, I don't believe this crap. Hey, you, come on in, we're going to audit you. Well, wait, well, you gave us the information so we can use it against you. The fraud of the 16th Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, is unconstitutional. The concept that voluntary compliance is the tax laws of America are fraudulent. And I will make a bet with anyone in this audience or anybody in this country, tax attorneys, big law firm, tax attorney, I will get 5 accountants. Better still, I will pay for 5 IRS agents to be sequestered. You know what that means? That means to be put in separate rooms. Give them the same information. And I guarantee you, you will get 5 different answers from the 5 IRS auditors and accountants. Now, this is what Limbaugh and Hannity and the other right-wing windbags should scream about. A tax law that's constitutional. Oh, we've got too much government. Obama's doing the same thing that Clinton did, blah, blah, blah. And he stirs up the pot, and boobuses get all bent out of shape when they've got the Constitution on their side to change the whole government so that they comply with the Constitution. And in many debates with former Senator Roth of Delaware, Norland Specter, and a whole list of guys, they all agreed. There was a judge in Nevada who would not handle any tax case, it would not handle any federal tax case in his court. And he wrote out a whole list of proposals to the United States Supreme Court telling them what's wrong with the tax code, how unconstitutional it is. Did they review it? No. Did they give it to the Internal Revenue Service? No. They removed him from the bench for using the Constitution as his legal argument. Mr. Brave Limbaugh, Mr. Brave Hannity, you got the guts, instead of shooting your mouth off, making millions of dollars, acting as patriotic Americans, to stand up to an unconstitutional amendment? Of course you don't. Because as long as you've got Boobus America kissing your behind and thinking you're the greatest thing since indoor plumbing, you'll get away with what you're getting away with. And whether it is the Republicans or the Democrats, conservatives or liberals, they'll all do the same thing. Because there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. The only legitimate party that has any realm of legitimacy to using the Constitution as its basis for a platform is the Libertarian Party. You cannot argue with the Libertarian Party. And I was told that, well, you're outrageous. Especially when it comes to public education. And this has always been a thing of mine. Teachers are making too much money. We've spent too much money on school taxes. They're building Taj Mahals. They're building big things. We all hear how wonderful our children are, don't we? We love our kids. We're concerned about leaving a legacy to our children and making this a better America for our kids after we're gone. Why is education mandatory? You know what mandatory means? What is it the government's business if I don't want to educate my kid? If my responsibility of having a child is to change his crappy diapers, feed him, teach him to read, to write, to function, learn a trade, why does big government have to be there and say, you must get your child educated? Is that freedom? The proof of the matter is, we really don't love our kids. When I say that, people, but I love my kids, I homeschool them, blah, blah, blah. I know all that crap, I've heard it before. I'm talking about 300 million people in America. If we really loved our kids, there wouldn't be any need for mandatory education. We would assume the responsibility ourselves to raise, nurture, feed, take care of, and educate our children. But apparently, for those like the Limbaughs and the Hannitys and their boobus listeners, big government that makes education mandatory and confiscates your money to pay for schools that don't work is acceptable to these windbags. I can deal with dishonesty. I can deal with a crook because I know what they're going to do. But I can't deal with hypocrites that I see emerging in America today with both the liberal side and the conservative side on radio and television. And that is my problem with the teabag Hannity and the $100 million a year Limbaugh, who talks about family values while he has no family, who talks about raising children, he has no children, who talks about a loving spouse, he's had 3 of them and they all dumped him. So he's good for one thing, smoking cigars and bullshitting. Because he hasn't proven he's a father, he hasn't proven that he's a husband, he hasn't proven anything that establishes what a true American is. And yet this verbal Hitler will have sheep following him that he shears on a daily basis because that wool grows back again. That's why I refer to followers of talk show hosts or politicians as sheeple. They shear them, the wool grows back again, they shear them again. In a free society like America, you don't need a leader. In all the years that I've been on radio and television, don't follow me, think for yourself. I will tell you what has worked for me. I will tell you the mistakes that I've made. I'm not your leader. Obama's not your leader. Clinton was not your leader. Nixon was not your leader. We elect politicians to be administrators of this Constitution, not leaders. They are administrators of a contractual agreement that we, the people of the United States, have with the administrators of this government. This government, this country belongs to we, the people. It is their job to administer the laws that are spelled out here. And when they don't, you vote them out of office. But when they collectively, both Democrats and Republicans, violate the tenets of the Constitution, we have a right, according to the Constitution, to overthrow that government. Maybe not by force, maybe not by civil disobedience, but civil disobedience works. You women out there never got the right to vote until you took to the streets. The ignorance of the history of this country is so unbelievable that sometimes it frightens the hell out of me. Blacks didn't have the right to serve in World War II in an integrated army. You know, when you talk like that, oh, that's un-American. Well, you see, ladies and gentlemen, I never cared about what Americans said about our country. I'm worried about the enemies of our country that use it as propaganda against us. See, the rest of the world knows and are taught in their schools that until 1965, black people were not allowed to serve in the army, in an integrated army. We're not allowed to go to white schools. See, Osama bin Laden knows that. The Taliban knows it. Al-Qaeda knows it. They use it for propaganda against us. And then we scratch our head and pick our ass and say, I wonder why they don't like us. If you're going to be an example to the rest of the world, let the rest of the world know how you, through the Constitution of the United States, have the right to change it. We have amendments. But the powerful who have taken this Constitution and have destroyed it, made violence become the way of life. Blacks had to take to the street to get constitutional rights that they were denied. But the Constitution gave them the right to change the Constitution and eliminate the discrimination. The rest of the world must know that the contract that we, the people, have with our government gives us the right and the ability to add amendments, to change Supreme Court decisions for the benefit of all the people. We do not know how to sell America through the rest of the world. We sell democracy with an idiot like Bush, who says if you don't believe in democracy, we're going to send our army in there and make it democratic. Some of you people have lived during World War II. Well, we defeated two of the Axis. We defeated Japan and we defeated Italy. But we never defeated Germany. Oh, yes, we did, Irv. No. The only way you defeat anybody is by changing their thought pattern, their minds. We defeated the Japanese because they converted and said, we'll let the emperor live and give him his white horse and his palace, but we will become a democracy. And so the whole Japanese thought process since the end of World War II has changed and converted to a different political and religious ideology. Same thing happened in Italy. We converted the fascists to a democratic form of government where the people have a say in the government of Italy, and the church is subjected to a side position in Italy. But we converted the Italian people. They enjoy being free. They don't want a dictator. But all we did with Nazism was kill it with guns. We never converted the Nazis in Germany to a point where it is against the law in Germany to celebrate any Nazi holiday, birthday, wear a swastika, show a swastika, teach it in German schools as history, because they've never been converted in thought. We killed them, but we didn't convert them. Our job is to convert people, not to try. We will never win in Afghanistan and in Iraq as long as Barack Obama and Rush Limbaugh have a hole in their behind. Never. And you can take that to the bank. If the day comes when I see all of our troops leave Afghanistan and Iraq and Pakistan, then I will quit radio and television and disappear into the dust, never to be heard from again. I am willing to put up my entire fortune that as long as I live, and I don't know how many more years I've got, you'll never see American troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq. Unless we get out of there, like we got out of Vietnam. We knew we couldn't win in Vietnam, we knew we couldn't win in Korea, and we knew that you couldn't win in Iraq and Afghanistan unless we went in there with 500,000 men and occupied those countries. Not with 130,000 troops or 200,000. Do you realize how many generals were fired during the Iraq-Afghanistan war? Now the generals are even saying, no way we can win this thing. Does that mean that the American troops aren't brave? No. Does that mean American troops are not fighters? No. We can't stop the drug war between Mexico and the United States, let alone create a democracy in Afghanistan and Iraq. We can't keep kids from killing 13, 14 people with automatic weapons in the schools in America, let alone make a democracy of Iraq and Afghanistan. We can't stop cops from being killed in America, but we're going to create a democracy in Afghanistan and Iraq. Are some of you people totally complete idiots? I threatened to write a book once called I Just Don't Get It. I just don't get it. The growth industry in America is security. You have a burglar alarm on your car, you got bars on your windows, you got security systems all over, you have to go into a building, they search you, you get on an airplane, oh man, we're secure. But with all of those security measures in America, that we live in fear, we have cars that you turn the key on, you drive the car, the doors automatically lock. If you have a convertible, God forbid you should try to ride around with the top down, unless you got a Smith & Wesson sitting on your seat. But we're going to create a democracy in Afghanistan and Iraq when I can't drive my convertible with the top down in the city of Philadelphia for fear somebody's going to carjack me or I'm going to have to shoot the son of a bitch. When are the American people going to get brains to think for themselves so they don't need OxyContin leaders and patriotic bullshit artists like Sean Hannity, who never wore the uniform of the United States, or Rush Limbaugh, who never wore the uniform of the United States, or half of the phonies in this country that support this war that never had their ass in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, or the Coast Guard. So shut up, brave American, until you've killed people, or until you've been shot at, and then you'll tell me how brave you are. How we should go in there and get them Al-Qaeda. How we should go in there and get them Taliban. How we should go in there and get them terrorists. Well, you put a uniform on and get your ass over there, and you get shot at. I don't see you volunteering, do you? Told you may not like what you hear on this program. I'm Irv Homer. Once again, my website is www.irvhomer.com. My email address is evilerv@irvhomer.com. And you can follow the Irv Homer Show on Twitter at www.twitter.com/IrvHomerShow. Woo! And we do this program Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I am well enough. This Friday, Valerie Morrison will be with us, right, Ron?
Yes.
Yes, Valerie will make her return, and we'll get some good stuff from Valerie as to what she sees in the future. RGH Computer Services for all your computer problems, all your computer needs. If you want to set this type of program up for yourself, just give them a call at 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. Didn't even get into feeding drugs to kids. Maybe we'll get into that Friday. No. Well, I'll talk to Valerie because Valerie knows a lot about legal drugs. Let's go to the chat room. Irv, I recently viewed some enlightening YouTube recordings of G. Edward Griffin discussing the Fed and Jekyll Island. Would you consider asking him to appear on your shows, at least linking his videos to your websites? Well, my dear friend, it is not the Fed and Jekyll Island, it is the creature from Jekyll Island, which is the name of Ed Griffin's book. I've interviewed Ed Griffin about 10 times in my broadcast career. The book Creature from Jekyll Island was written about 25 years ago. At that time is when I introduced Ed Griffin to the audience. If you take a look on my website, you will see 10 or 12 books there that I suggest you don't read. And one of them is Creature from Jekyll Island. It explains the fraud of American currency. And one of the reasons that we're in the mess we're in today. I know Ed Griffin personally. I've been an advocate of his book for years. I probably sold more books for Ed Griffin when he appeared on the program than any other talk show host in the country. And you don't need Ed Griffin for an interview. Go get the book yourself. And read the book, ladies and gentlemen, called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And you'll understand why the ship of the United States is sinking. Do some research yourself. Little homework. Sometimes it takes a little homework to do it. Our next comment on the chat room. It's the same BS the politicians put out and the people buy it. Did the people really think Obama was really going to end earmarks? There is no difference between Rush and Obama. One hand feeds the other. Of course one hand feeds the other. And my argument, my dear friend, is why did the Republicans put up two weak candidates like John McCain and Sarah? It's all right if my daughter got knocked up out of wedlock. Palin. I may sound cruel, but don't preach to me about moral turpitude when your little daughter got knocked up. And don't preach to me, Dick Cheney, former Vice President of the United States, about the evils of gay people. If my kid's gay, it's no good, but the fact that Vice President Cheney had a gay daughter, he never once castigated her or insulted her in any way because it was his daughter. But I would like to hear the pillow talk between Sarah Palin and her husband prior to their daughter getting knocked up out of wedlock. Why were you Republicans so dumb? Because there's no difference between a Republican and a Democrat. Milton Street, the brother of former mayor of Philadelphia, John Street, questioned the tax law in court, and look what happened to him. Well, you see, my dear friend, when you challenge the tax law, you have to do it in good faith, as many of the people that I was involved with in the 80s, in which they used the Constitution of the United States in good faith and demanded that the court explain to them why voluntary compliance meant mandatory compliance, why confession meant that I had to confess information that could be used against me. Milton Street's past history of when he was a street vendor, of when he was once a Republican in the state legislature, then switched to being a Democrat because then his vote could be, no, he was a Democrat first, and then he switched to Milton Street's past record proved to the court that he did not act in good faith when he questioned the tax law. And so the credibility of the defendant, Milton Street, my dear friend, didn't hold up in court. But I have a list of people who challenged the tax laws of the United States in good faith. One was a commercial airline pilot, and he won his case. Because in good faith, he was willing to pay taxes. He wasn't trying to evade them. He had a whole history of compliance. He just studied the tax laws. He studied books like The Creature from Jekyll Island. He studied the history of the Federal Reserve Bank. He studied the history of the 16th Amendment. And he was well armed when he went into court and just asked the court, explain to me where I'm wrong by using this as my defense. And the tax court let him go with one provision, that until the law is changed by a libertarian candidate who may become the President of the United States, he will abide by the unconstitutional laws that he proved to be unconstitutional in court. Good faith is an important thing, and I know Milton Street and wasn't good faith. Irv, what do you think universal health care will look like in America? Well, what it's going to look like is that we're going to continue the way we're going. We have the greatest health care in the world here in America. There's two problems, and they're not separate. We have the health care. We have to figure out a way to pay for it. And until such time we can figure out how to make health care affordable, we're going to have this contentious battle under our capitalist system. That if you have money, you live. If you don't have money, you're going to die. And it's that simple. So our problem in America, my dear friends, is not with health care. It is not with research and development. It's not with technology. It's not with the ability to cure cancer, spend money for research. We have millions of dollars that we do that. Our problem is, how do you take Joe Sixpack, who I love dearly, with a family of 2 or 3 kids, and make health care affordable to that man if he has a child with leukemia, muscular dystrophy, spina bifida, or one of those diseases. And what do you do with grandmom and grandpa, who live to be 85 and 90, who need 24-hour care? The care is there. We have all of the health care in the world. We've got the greatest MRI machines, the greatest CAT scans, the greatest X-ray, the greatest diagnosticians, the greatest internists. How do we pay for it? And I wish they would be smart enough to realize where the problem is. The problem is not health care. The problem is the cost. Who's going to pay for it? How is it going to be paid for? Under a capitalist system that we have, the rich live and the poor die. Get used to it. You can't afford the medical treatment, and I'm glad that our inspector survived his operations. You'll never get that kind of care at Johns Hopkins Hospital or Bethesda, Maryland. I'll never get it. They don't wait in waiting rooms for 2-3 hours if they've got a sore throat. The rich don't sit in waiting rooms like the poor do, or go to the clinic. Therein is the problem. It's not the health care, because the health care is available to all. The problem is, as you get richer and richer and richer, you get better and better and better health care because you can afford it. See, I made a statement once a couple of years ago on the air, and I said, poor people live longer than rich people do because every time they fart, they don't run to the doctor. A rich person with all kind of medical care. Oh, you got a headache here. I got a pain here. My ear don't work. My ass don't work. My stomach hurts. My back hurts. What? I got medical coverage. That's all. Oh, it hurts here. It hurts here. Listen to Jackie Mason sometime, if you're familiar with his town, and listen to what he says about health care. When you're rich, you got pains all over. You got to go to the doctor. Got to go to the special. Go to heart specialist. Go to heart specialist. Okay. What? Now you go to a respiratory man. Go to a respiratory man. Oh, you know what's wrong? You got to go to a nose and throat man. Okay. You got to go to an ear specialist. No, you got to go to a left eye specialist. If you can afford it, you go to all them doctors. Some people, the only social life they have are appointments with their doctors. That's their social life. Monday they go to the eye doctor. Tuesday they go to the foot doctor. Wednesday they go to the stomach doctor. Then they go to the heart doctor. Then they go to the circulatory man. Then they go to the blood specialist. Now, if you don't have that kind of medical coverage, you're healthy. So the problem is not healthcare in America. The problem is, how do you pay for it? And who's willing to pay for it? The other thing is, we live too long. Our capitalist system in America was set up with age perimeters. If you study the history of capitalism and how it evolved from a barter system and a equal trade agreement between the states, you will see that this economic system that we have was geared to a person starting work at 14 years of age. And the actuary tables show that 14 years of age you're supposed to start working, and you're supposed to die at 57. So during that period of time, you work. Now some people don't make a living until they're 25 when they get out of school. They retire at 72 or 75 and live another 15 years. The question is, can you accumulate enough assets in your working years to pay for that 15-year retirement, at which time you're going to have more chronic diseases than you will have infectious diseases. And chronic diseases are expensive. So when you quit work, say at 70 years of age or retire at 72, maybe mandatory, and you live to be 90, that's 15 years that you have no appreciable income. But your cost of staying alive increases. Our capitalist system is not designed actuarially to sustain your life. We'll get into that maybe another time. Last thing on our on our chat room, Irv, will we ever see a credible libertarian candidate in our lifetime? The answer is no. And the answer is because I've asked this question any number of times on this program, on 50,000 watts, for 25 years. What program would you like to see the government eliminate? Social Security, aid to dependent children, small business loans, FHA mortgages. What branch of government would you like to see reduced? The Libertarian Party has a whole platform of reducing the size of government. The people in America like freebies. They bullshit that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Go to the casinos and see how much they comp. Radio stations give $1,000 if you tune in at a certain time. Buy one, get one free. Half off if you buy a full course dinner. So while we profess to be capitalists, and while we profess to believe in working hard and a good Judeo-Christian work ethic, it's all bullshit. People want something for nothing. And the government over the years have given you things for nothing, and you don't want that libertarian to take it away from you. So as soon as a libertarian says, well, guess what? You're not going to get unemployment compensation. You're not going to pay for it, and your boss is going to pay for it. Because you lose your job, you got to get another one. Oh, wait a minute, I'm going to lose my unemployment. Oh, I'm a good capitalist, but I want my unemployment compensation. I had a very dear friend of mine, a partner for many, many years, a fundamentalist Presbyterian. It was a great combination. Me, an agnostic Jew, and him, a Presbyterian fundamentalist, who believed in capitalism. However, when it was time for his children to go to college, he lied about his income so he could get college loans for his kids. Thank you very much. Great night tonight. Wednesday, March 11th is in the can. Go to the archives if you missed any of it, if you want to hear other programs. I'm Irv Homer. We'll see you Friday night with Valerie Morrison. Until then, don't bother being a follower. Think for yourself. Get the cobwebs out of your head and don't listen to these bullshit artists about how big government is and we got to lead a tax rate. They're such liars. But it is comic relief for me. That's why I love CDs and I love Sirius, because I listen to music instead of that crap. If you want to enjoy yourself tonight, ladies and gentlemen, put on a Marx Brother movie or a Three Stooges movie and laugh like hell. Maybe an I Love Lucy job. I'm Irv Homer, so I am, and we'll see you on Friday.